Hi ladies, welcome back to this channel. My name is Marin and this is Thankful Thriftiness. My husband had an interesting project request a little bit ago. He actually asked me to paint one of his beehives. I had never heard of such a thing. I don't know why, but I had literally never heard of doing that before. My husband explained to me that although it's also really cool looking, it's actually beneficial for the bees to have a painted beehive. Just like humans, bees can sometimes get lost. And by painting the different beehives, it actually helps the bees distinguish between their own hive and another colony. When he first told me, I thought, super cool, new project, never done this before, let's wing it, let's try it, let's see what happens. And then he brought the beehive home. I don't know how I didn't realize this beforehand, but he has a plastic beehive, okay? When I was researching, all the information I found was about wooden hives. Guys, there is a world of difference between painting a plastic and a wooden hive, okay? Wood things adhere to a lot better than plastic. So I was pretty much left like, I just gotta figure out what to do because no one online had any answers for me. I had three main issues. One, it has to not have like any toxins at all. Two, it has to not smell at all because bees are very sensitive to smell. So anyways, I'm like, yeah, there's no paints out there like this. So I realized I need to use a paint that fits the first two criteria and then seal it in with something that also doesn't smell or isn't toxic for the bees. The good thing is, necessity is the mother of invention and creativity comes within boundaries. My boundaries were these three things. I need to find a paint that was non-toxic, didn't smell because bees are very sensitive to smell and it can make them leave their hive, which is not a good thing. And it also needed to bond to plastic. I know, right? I found a plethora of paints that fit the first two criteria or fit the last criteria, but never both. So I realized I needed to find a paint that fit the first two criteria and then seal it in with something that also was healthy for the bees. And as far as sealers are concerned, a lot of them are also not good for bees, so I had to figure out a way to do it. Thankfully I did, and I will share with you in this video how I hacked it until I made it work. Later in the summer, I plan to film another video with just an update on how the bees are doing, whether or not the painting stood up to the sun and the elements. So yeah, let's get rolling. Let me know in the comments below a project that you have or have had where you have boundaries, and maybe we can brainstorm on how to actually use those boundaries to make something even better, to be even more creative. What I decided to use to paint the beehive was chalk paint. It seemed the most eco-friendly, or bee-friendly at least, and it was also fairly inexpensive. I found some at Walmart for like $2 for a bottle of paint, which was really great because I didn't need a ton. I wasn't gonna paint the entire beehive. The credit for the design on this beehive actually goes to Griffin. He came up with it himself. I just drew it out and he approved it, so great job, babe. To begin the project, I created a stencil. I know the stencil is a bit of a hack job, but it worked. It held together literally like just until the end, and then it completely fell apart. Originally I planned to just lay the stencil over the top of the beehive and paint over the top of it, but I realized it was not going to hold up to that. It barely held up to me drawing over the top of it with a pencil, so absolutely wasn't going to happen. So first of all, I penciled out my design. I used my stencil to help me draw my honeycomb. After I was done penciling in the design, I painted around 3 thin layers of paint. I didn't want it to be so caked up with paint that it would be liable to peel off entirely, but I also wanted it to show up, so I found that doing several layers was better than one big thick layer. Couple of quick tips: make sure that you let your paint dry in between coats, and also wash out your brushes so that the chalk paint doesn't get caked up in there. It's pretty bad with that, so just keep your brushes clean and it'll be a whole smoother process, trust me. So the painting went really well, there were really no issues there. The real issue came in when it came time to seal in that paint, because like I said, everything over the internet was really not safe to use on a beehive. So I thought to myself, if I were a bee and someone were painting my beehive, what would I want them to seal in the paint with? Aha! How about beeswax? It can't be that hard, can it? It honestly wasn't as hard as I thought it was gonna be. I figured out a pretty easy way to actually use beeswax to seal in the paint. I'm really hoping that the bees will take to it and not feel like it's a foreign substance, if that makes sense. So we will see. Like I said, I'll update you later, but here's how I made it. The biggest issue I ran into with this was melting down the beeswax. I had to add just a little bit of olive oil, like a couple drops. It just, for some reason, helped it all come together and melt down. If you do this, don't add much olive oil because the problem will be in the summer sun, it will melt off a lot more easily. So I added a few drops, which helped turn the beeswax into a liquid, and very carefully painted thin layers over the top of the artwork. By the time I was done with the layer of wax, it actually was pretty clumpy on the beehive. The way I fixed this issue was I took my iron on the lowest setting. I placed a piece of parchment paper over the top of the beehive where I had put the wax, and I very, very carefully, kind of like peeling back the parchment paper as I went, so as not to leave it on to stick to the wax, I very carefully ironed out the clumpy places of wax. If you're not careful with this, what will happen is as you peel back the parchment paper, some of the paint will come with it. That's what you do not want to happen. So I took my time, I went slow, and I was pretty pleased with the overall finished product. I could have touched up a few places with some paint, but I don't think the bees will mind too much. And that was it. That was how I painted my husband's beehive. I ended up also writing a scripture verse, well, kind of a scripture verse at the bottom of the beehive. Be fruitful and multiply, except I used the word for bee as in honeybee instead of bee as it's written out in the Bible, so that was kind of fun too. So I get that a lot of you who are watching this video probably don't have bees, and sorry if I bored you, but I really just wanted to show you an example of a project where I didn't have everything I needed. I didn't even have all the information I needed, but I just tried to do my best to think through the boundaries I had and work within those, and hopefully come up with something I can repeat in the future and use for future projects. There are so many amazing projects out there. We have to train our minds to think creatively of, I have an issue, instead of just trying to get rid of the issue, how can I use this to almost make something better or make something new? Who knows what you'll come up with. Thanks y'all so much for watching this video. Once again, I plan on filming an update later in the summer to let you know how it goes, how the bees take to it, whether or not this project was a success. We shall see. If this video was helpful to you, or at least interesting, I don't know, maybe you're a beekeeper too, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel. Have a blessed day everyone, and I can't wait to show you how this goes. See ya!